Biggest betting weekend of the year is finally here, which means more updated odds for Super Sunday. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. We have hundreds of prop bets, MVP odds, and exclusive in-game live betting. BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. And there's a lot of candidates out there for MVP. There's three in particular that you might want to hedge your bets on. Whether you are a seasoned veteran or a first-time bettor, BetOnline offers you everything and more to enhance your game day experience. Visit the website today and make the game day action count a little more. Bet online, the game starts here. Welcome, everyone. It is the Fly Guys podcast. Justin Goodhart alongside Cameron Klein as we bring to you a special edition of Fly Guys After Dark. It's actually right after a hockey game that the New York Islanders played. They're from Long Island, in case you didn't know. And they took on the Philadelphia Phantoms in a weird game between an AHL team and an NHL team. It went about as expected. The Islanders won 3-0. And oh wait, no, that wasn't the Philadelphia Phantoms, was it, Cameron? Was that the Flyers out there tonight?
Just I mean, it's late, right? It's late, which
it's
is
10:40. So sorry, it's 10:30 as we record this.
Yeah, so we're low energy because it's late, but at the same time, we've done a lot of late episodes. Been very high energy in a lot of late episodes, and I'm just emotionally, not even emotionally, but I'm just exhausted after watching that. That was just exhausting. And we were talking a little bit before we started, and it was like after the first period and a half, it was like liking the effort. They're in the zone. They got the pressures up, but the opportunities weren't there. Rebounds weren't there specifically. And then it just got to a point where it was like, okay, just fast forward. Where's the click remote? Let's just end it. Just end it, please. Just end it.
Now
just
I have
this game.
I have to fully admit, the first 15 minutes of the game, or something like that. Maybe it was really more like the first 12 or so. I didn't know the game was on ESPN Plus. I thought it was only like on TNT and Max. So I was listening to the game with Tim Saunders and Todd Fedoruk, and then I realized it was on ESPN Plus, and I turned it on just in time to see the 4-minute power play begin. And I see the puck go in. Michkov's pretty excited. I'm like, and every time he scores, you get a little bit more excited because it's for him. Like, he's our golden child. And I look at the replay initially. I'm like, oh my God, there's nothing to challenge there. That's a goal all the way. And then Patrick Waugh does challenge it, and they look at the overhead thing, and the ESPN broadcast is like, oh well, obviously that's goaltender interference. I'm like, wait, where is he so impeded that he can't make the save? Like Sorokin, it's not like his stick got flung out, his pad didn't get restricted. He had full mobility. He got bumped into. Now, and there will be people that say, well, no, that is the letter of the law that you can't bump into someone willingly going into the crease. And my answer to that is, why is that the letter of the law? If there is no significant impact on the goaltender, if there is no hard contact, if it's just a slight bump that doesn't even stop the goaltender from being able to kick out his pad, how is that goaltender interference? That was such a soft call, in my opinion.
It was. I wish they were just more concrete about it. It's like you might as well just go back to the point of if you're in the crease, it doesn't count.
Oh, and
that's kind of where it's getting at. It's like if he was a step forward and he wasn't in the crease, that's a goal every time.
And by the way, this is the same replay crew that won't call a goal if the puck is under the guy's pad but it's behind the red line. Right. So they won't call a goal when that stuff happens. But when slight contact, it clearly threw off the Flyers. The rest of the power play, you texted me, Cameron. You were like, glad they got, they made up for it. Yeah, and it's just they fell out of rhythm. And for the rest of the first period, it didn't really seem like they had their mojo to them. And then in the second period, here come the Islanders. A really bad defensive play by Matvei Michkov, which got him benched and also got him into a shouting match with John Tortorella. Always good for team morale, of course. And he did not play the rest of the second period. The Flyers had their opportunities. Joel Farabee had his opportunity in the third period. There was a really good point-blank shot with Tyson Forster making a great pass to Noah Cates right in front of Sorokin. And Sorokin, much like he often does with the Flyers, he had the answer. I was about to come on here with you, Cameron, to be like, you know what? I know it's frustrating, but sometimes you just lose the game, and that's just what it is. But it was just like the second half of that second period and the third period, they were sleepwalking.
Mm.
But suddenly, there might be a reason why they were not quite themselves in the later second and third period. Cameron, what is
That's
going
true.
on? What is happening in the front office right now?
Yeah, I don't know. Apparently, there was a trade. Apparently, Andrei Kuzmenko is possibly coming to Philadelphia. 28-year-old winger out of Calgary. The rumor, and that's a rumor as of right now, is that Frost might have been involved because he did not see the bench throughout the entire third period. As well as who was the other person possibly coming in? You mentioned right before we got in.
Jakob Pelletier.
Okay, yeah. Again, but I don't know. I I feel like they need center help and getting rid of a center. And again, granted, on an expiring contract, but so is Kuzmenko. Getting rid of a center for two other wingers who are also gambles, who also have not really quite transitioned into what they were supposed to possibly be, at least in Kuzmenko's case. But yeah, so maybe that was possibly throwing things off. Maybe they just got word that something happened and everyone's focus suddenly was shifted elsewhere. But I'm not sure. We don't fully know yet. But we know something happened at least. So there you go. There's your report. That's not a report.
So let's just dive into one thing about this.
Yeah.
As I said before, if you're looking for fireworks tonight from Cameron and I, you've come to it's the wrong night to ask it for us. First and foremost, I'm still kind of riding the high from Sunday's game against Washington. But
you look great. You actually kind of look like Baker Mayfield in that photo of his draft. The draft day photo of him.
I love these. You know me. I love these old style hats.
Oh, they're great.
They're the best.
They're great. Yeah.
Let's just take an honest look at Morgan Frost, because as his time here appears to be done.
Mm-hmm.
He was a first-round pick in the same year that Joel Farabee was a first-round pick.
Yeah. Rumored to be done, but yeah.
Rumored to be done. Maybe this comes out and it ends up being like a big, nothing burger. But
yeah,
he played here since he's been really with the Flyers. Officially, he's been really with the Flyers since 2021, 2022. He had a stint in 2019, 2020. He actually didn't look that bad. 2 goals, 5 assists. Ever since then, though, this has been a joke. Just this is. I don't know if I'm actually mad at Morgan Frost, but he was not a first-round pick pedigree player at any point in Philadelphia. He was no better than a third-line center at best. We tried to envision him as a first-line center, taking over for the reins when eventually Couturier hangs it up, and a guy that could be a better version of Scotty Lawton and all that stuff. And there was reason to think that. It's not like Morgan Frost doesn't have talent. He has talent.
Mm-hmm.
But just the inconsistency, the weeks on end of not really contributing, getting benched last year and having to have a fight with John Tortorella where I believe he allegedly held him at knife point. That's obviously a lie, but allegedly hit him over the head with a 2x4 to get back in the lineup.
Yeah.
And you would have these moments, Cameron, where Frost could go on a bender and have 6 goals and 10 assists in a 20-game stretch, and you're like, all right, here we go. This is what we were waiting for. And then the next 3 to 4 weeks, he might have no goals, 1 assist, and he'd be like a -10 on the ice.
Yeah.
He gets pushed off the puck way too easily.
Yeah.
He's not a great forechecker. He's not a great offensive player. He's just not. 135 points in 277 NHL games played. On an 82-game average, he's getting 40 points. It's less than half a point a game. That's a first-round pick? It is. That's what it was. And I think it's time. I think even though they need a center, I know that they need a center. They probably should call someone up from the Phantoms. His time here was obviously done, and it is time for a move.
Yeah, I mean that's how I felt. That's how I felt for most of this season coming into it. It's just like there's always the meme of, well, he's not gonna do a lot until January. He's not gonna turn it on until January. And it's just been consistently true so far the past 3 seasons or so. And yeah, this is the final year of his contract. In my opinion, I don't necessarily want that long term. An inconsistent player who's streaky, who like it's one thing if you're inconsistent and you're clutch, right? Like Danny Briere was never like a major point per game player, except for very, very early on in his career, mostly with Buffalo.
And the 1 year with Philadelphia, he had 1 year with Philadelphia where he had 34 goals.
Right. Like other than that, like he was a great player. He'd still score you 50, 60 points a season.
Mm-hmm.
But what made him exponentially great was his playoff performances all the time. He was a clutch player. When you needed a goal, he was the guy. He would do it for you. Morgan Frost, so far from what we've seen, and could change maybe, I don't know, but so far from what we've seen, he's not that at all.
No.
So he's not consistent. He doesn't seem to play well enough defensively to make up for that either. Like again, like you said about how you'd ideally like him to be like a better version of Scotty Lawton, but Scotty Lawton's always doing the tough stuff all the time. Like you're always seeing him at least making plays, and you're never thinking like, what the hell is he doing out there?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's on a consistent basis. Even if he's not scoring on a consistent basis, that's on a consistent basis. And you just don't see that from Morgan Frost, at least so far, in his time in Philadelphia. And I agree. If he's on an expiring contract, if he's going to walk anyway, and I think he's going to be a restricted free agent, but if he's going to walk, no, he's going to be unrestricted?
No, I'm pretty sure he was going to be in a UFA. I'm pretty sure about
contract that. Just to make sure. But yeah, either way, regardless, it's like you might as well get something for him now, because I don't see him being here long term. I don't think most other people do. I don't think Tortorella does, despite the fact that he broke into his office and beat him with a baseball bat.
Allegedly, he allegedly did that. No, he'll be a restricted free agent. I thought he was going to be an unrestricted free agent, but he'll be restricted. And the thing is, like we talked about earlier in right, it was like right around when the season started. We said, hey, this is like a make or break year for Morgan Frost. If he wants to secure a contract, he's got to show some improvement.
Yeah,
and kind of build off of how he began to play a little bit better at the end of last season, and that didn't happen.
Right.
You can't lie to yourself when you're a rebuilding team. And if the Flyers had awarded if they had awarded Morgan Frost with a contract extension, like a 4 or 5 year deal, and gave him $6 million a year, they would only be kidding themselves, and it would be more tire spinning in this organization. So I applaud Danny Briere for being able to just be like, yeah, nope, not working, get out of here. And it's not easy to do, and it's not fun to do. This is a guy that you've had in your organization for like 7 years now, and you want to see it work out. You want to see him be everything that you think he can be. But he's not what you think he can be. And if he's not what you need for a team that's trying to build their way back up into being a contender, then this is where you got to move on. Now, there is a caveat to this. If all that's coming back are those two players, and they just brought in 2 wingers for Morgan Frost. Damn it, I keep saying Scott Lund. I'm like trying to will, I guess, a Scott Lund trade into existence. But if that's all they end up getting back out of this, that ain't great either, and that's like I would not be impressed with Danny Briere's work on that.
If you're getting one kind of a bust player, you're getting rid of one kind of a bust player for another kind of a bust player who's also on an expiring contract.
It's a big nothing. It's a nothing move.
It's nothing. It means nothing. The other thing too is one of the reasons why I think Morgan Frost has kind of been sticking around throughout the season so far. Why it hasn't happened earlier is because again the Flyers need centers. And if the last 2 weeks, I mean, they had the bump right when they played the Anaheim Ducks, and then they beat Florida, and then they lost in a shootout to Columbus, beat the Islanders, beat the Devils, all that kind of stuff. After that, it seems like the last 2 weeks, last 6 games have just been the same of what it was in December, the same of what it was in October. And it kind of seems like November was the only month of consistency so far that did not go beyond just a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So if you're looking at it from that angle as well, there's no reason to keep a center just to keep a center if it's not going to mean anything by the end of the season. And that's more and more what it's looking like too. But again, like you said, if that means you're just getting rid of a guy just to get another guy who is not going to be here after this summer, what is the point? You might as well have just kept him. So I don't know. The full details of the trade or of the possible trade have not come out yet. But I don't know. We'll see.
Now, this is just coming out. Tortorella says that Morgan Frost just didn't feel good. Said he tried to play through it but couldn't. Implies that he wasn't pulled because of a trade.
Okay.
Now that's notable.
That's nice.
That is nice in the fact that maybe it implies that it's not Morgan Frost. But then the question then becomes, well, who?
Mm-hmm.
Who are you trading? Because you're getting back 2 players. Oh gosh, that's sorry. I just almost got baited by a troll account. I almost reported a trade that is most certainly not happening.
Okay.
But
what was it? Can I hear it?
Oh, you're gonna laugh. You're gonna be like, Justin, you got to be better than that. It's just because it's late at night.
It's moments of weakness. We're in moments of weakness.
I'm hearing. It says, I'm hearing Mikko Rantanen and Andrei Kuzmenko are joining the Flyers. Canes get Morgan Frost. Calgary taking half of Rantanen's contract, and they also get a third.
I'd take that deal. Yeah.
I would sell my soul for that deal, but that's But like so then it becomes like, okay, you're trading for 2 wingers. Who are you giving up? My first thought is like, okay, is this Farabee? Is this potentially Bobby Brink? Like, I can't imagine they're trading a center away to get 2 wingers if it's not going to be Frost that's on the ship to Calgary. But that, it's definitely it's going to be interesting to see what the next 12 hours then looks like, because the Flyers need to make here's the point that I was going to make before I almost got trolled. We should be selling. The Flyers are sellers. They're not a playoff team.
Yeah.
They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not good enough to make the playoffs, and they shouldn't make. If they make the playoffs, then the Eastern Conference has a lot more problems in terms of talent than I'd like to admit.
Yeah,
but
and I don't think it does.
It doesn't. At the end of the day, are they beating any of the teams currently in the playoff picture? Are they beating that team in a 7-game series? No. Then they're not a playoff team. Enough's enough. So they should be sellers, and there are guys that should be on the trading block. Rasmus Ristolainen should be on the trading block. In my opinion, someone like, as much as I love Scott Laughton, if he gets brought up in a trade, I'd be willing to listen. Bobby Brink should be on the chopping block a little bit. See what you can get for him. See what kind of offer you might get for Noah Cates. See what's out there. You don't have to trade these guys, but, at the end of the day, they should try to look at something that might get them some sort of return that will allow them to draft more next year, or a promising young prospect. Look at the contending teams, see what they're lacking, and take stock of your roster and be like, hey, we might be able to get a little piece. I guarantee you Noah Cates could fetch a pretty nice return.
He could, although I don't know if Coach Cates would be on the move. And the other reason why I'm saying that is because I'm not sure if you saw it. You might have, but I popped onto Twitter the other day for maybe like 5 minutes. But the Flyers, when they sent out their season ticket little letter.
Oh yeah,
Bryce. Mm-hmm. Yep. It mentioned Cates. It mentioned Cates. It mentioned Bobby Brink, Michkov, obviously, Cam York, and somebody else. But I
think wasn't it was it Tyson Forrester?
Yes, I think it was. Yeah. So which to me tells me, like, okay, if they're going to be like the selling point guys, most likely, not that they won't be traded, but it's just like, but it seems like I feel like there will be a talk internally about, like, hey, we're sending out the newsletter to the people that spend a lot of money here. Who should we mention?
So one question I have for you: would you trade Konechny if someone really wanted him? Would you trade him?
Oh, I mean, it's hard to say you would trade your best player, but at the same time, it depends. Right now, it depends on the return.
But I think it's more than that. Like you say, it's hard to trade your best player. I think that I think Konechny, if Couturier, for example, hung it up after this year, Konechny probably becomes your captain.
Yeah, he's the unofficial captain. He's I think the Giroux in 2012 right now.
Yeah,
I feel like
him and Scott Laughton are the heart and soul of this team, with Konechny obviously performing at a higher value. But I'm just trying to think now, like, who in on God's green earth are they thinking about trading? And
like you said, Risto 100%.
Risto should be a guy, yeah. If they said that which defenseman am I trying to think of? Oh, if Oh, Frank Saravelli.
What is
The
it?
Flyers are trading both Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost to the Flames as a part of this deal. Yep, and it's being confirmed. Joel Farabee is off to Calgary.
And Frost.
And Frost, apparently.
And this is not a fake account.
No, this is Frank Saravelli, verified.
Okay. There it is.
So let's talk about Joel Farabee. It's just like, I have to say, like, this is hard to track. It's hard to track this in an episode because it's happening all live. Like, this isn't like we're following this.
This is fun all of a sudden.
Kind of fun.
This is
hey,
kind of
you know
fun.
what's nice is that in times past we've talked about things that may happen, and the Sanheim deal was especially a big one. The Konechny deal happened right after we got off, and so it's nice to
We'll be lucky if Coots takes $8 million a year. We'll be lucky. 715 30 minutes later after it's uploaded.
Oh my gosh.
This is exciting. I will say though, the really quick for Jacob Pelletier, I'm going to read some of his AHL numbers the last 3 years. 2023, he had 37 points in 35 games, 12 points in 18 games last year, and then currently so far this season he's got 19 points in 20 games. But in the NHL, he's also played 23 games this year, which is the most so far in his career, and he had 11 points. So, and he's 23. Still.
Yeah, so he might be a guy that probably is. Well, I mean, the talent that's on this team might very well crack this roster.
At this point, right.
But in terms of who the Flyers are giving up, Joel Farabee's best season was last year. 22 goals, 28 assists. He is most certainly not on that pace right now to repeat the 50-point season that he had a year ago.
No.
The excitement around Joel Farabee was in 2019-2020. Because it just felt like he was always where he needed to be, and he had 21 points in 52 games. And, he was a good contributor on that Flyers bubble team. And then the next year, he 38 points in 55 games, which, he's 20. He's 20. So he's 24 now, and he has 19 points in 49 games. Just as a reminder, in 55 games when he was 20, he had 38 points. So he's not on the same pace. And he just hasn't been the same player since he first broke into the league. I think there were times where he fell out of favor with Tortorella. But I'm going to turn this over to you for a second, Cameron. You were obviously a big fan of Joel Farabee, and his lasting image might be that missed kind of breakaway shot. Does this, what does this mean to you in terms of, trading away Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost, 2 first-round picks in the same year for this Flyers team?
I think that the sigh, kind of says it best. Because I think, again, as a lot of other Flyer fans probably feel right now, it just exhausted. Again, there he goes, another one. Nolan Patrick. Another one. Shane Gostisbehere, another one gone. Not a draft pick necessarily, but not a first round pick necessarily. But it's just so many misses. Just so many. And
speaking of misses,
chalk up 2 more. Chalk up 2 more misses.
Speaking of misses, I was wrong. So Frost was drafted in 2017 at pick 27. I knew the Flyers had 2 first round picks in 2018. That's what confused me. Farabee was selected 14th by the Flyers.
Yeah.
And just so you know who they could have taken, K'Andre Miller was on the board. They could have went and got. There was Rasmus Sandin that they could have gone ahead and got. Philip, or not Philip Jansen. There was another guy that I just saw. Well, point being, who did they draft then at the 19th pick? And I thought this was Frost. It was Jay O'Brien. They drafted Jay O'Brien, who never cracked a fucking minute in the show. He was a fringe AHL player that wasn't good enough to fucking make that roster after a while.
Fun fact, I know somebody up here who played hockey with him.
Oh, you really?
Yeah, we can talk about that off air though. But it's nothing crazy. But every time I hear that name, I think of him. Shout out to Sam. But
we'll just name him.
Yeah, but that highlights to my point about why this sucks. It's just like another thing, and it's again, it's a trade for two guys who you're taking a gamble on. Kuzmenko, who scored 74 points in his first year in the NHL when he was 26, came in late, but he was also lined up with Elias Peterson in Vancouver. And then the next year, because he was disappointing, they traded him away to Calgary. He scored, 25 points in Calgary in 29 games. And then this year, he's disappointing again with 15 points in 37 games. Now, he did play with Matthew Michkov back in the KHL.
Yeah, that's
back in, I think, 21, 22. So that's people can't kind of, are highlighting because they're like, well, there's potential there. And there is, but still, it doesn't. I'm not celebrating this as a victory yet because it's just, to me, another example of two highly touted prospects with the Philadelphia Flyers that didn't pan out. And that to me is my history as a Flyers fan the last decade.
Yeah, and I was about to bring it up. So you go back a decade. So let's just go back to 2015, the draft in 2015. Ivan Provorov, Travis Konechny, Felix Sandstrom, Matej Tomic, Samuel Dove McFallis, Mikhail Vorobiev. Oh, how could you forget about the days of Vorobiev? David Kase, Cooper Maradi, and Ivan Fedotov. So, and Fedotov, as we all know, is not looking to be too hot. Konechny, pretty good pick in the first round. Ivan Provorov, all things considered, good pick in the first round.
Yeah.
But let's just go past that. Let's just go to 2016. Their first two rounds. German Rubtsov, we all remember how that one ended. Pascal Laberge, you've never heard of him because he didn't crack a freaking day in the show. Carter Hart, we all know how that one ended up going. Good pick, but didn't last. Wade Allison, disaster. Carson Tornitzky, disaster. Connor Bunnaman, not good. Linus Hoberg, Tanner Lazinski, Anthony Salatrini, and David Bernhardt. 2017 was Patrick, Morgan Frost, 2 first round. They had 2018 and 2017 with 2 first round picks in each draft. Nolan Patrick, Morgan Frost, Isaac Radcliffe, Kirill Ustimenko, who again is another guy. It's like you ain't cracking it anytime soon. Matthew Strome, not the Matt Strome, but Matthew Strome, not playing. Noah Cates, hey, not a bad pick right now. Ollie Lixell, bleh. But
still
these are
barely cracking the roster.
Let's go to 2019. I'm not done yet. Cam York.
2019, 6 years ago, by the way.
6 years ago.
That's 6 years ago. This isn't like last year. And it's like, oh, well, they're still developing because they're 18. These guys are 24, 25 years old at this point.
3 top players in that draft. Cam York, Bobby Brink, Ronnie Attard. Not bad, but you wouldn't exactly be pounding the table with that. 2020, They only had 5 picks that year. They got Tyson Forster and Emil Andre. Hey, not bad.
Could be good.
And they also then picked Zay Wisdom, Elliot Desharnais, and Connor McClellan. Have you ever heard of Connor McClellan? Of course you haven't. All right, 2021, Samu Tuomala, because they didn't have a first-round pick, because we had traded it. I don't know if you remember, there was a trade that happened where we gave away a first-round pick for some guy, I think his name was Rasmus Ristolainen. And third-round pick, Alexei Kolosov. Oh, that hasn't worked at all so far. And then a bunch of guys you never heard of. 2022, Cutter Gauthier. Do I even need to say it, people? Devin Kaplan, Alex Bump, Hunter McDonald. After Gauthier, not a single one of our draft picks has even seen a day in the show. In 2023, not a single player from that draft, other than Matvei Michkov, has seen a goddamn day in the show. Yeah. Oliver Bonk, to be fair, and Denver Barkey, to be fair, are very, very exciting prospects that we think will crack the roster at some point and maybe be very dependable. But here's the problem with that, Cameron. Why would we think they'll work out when the other first-round draft picks, it's like, how many more times am I going to see the cheese and go for it knowing I'm going to get zapped? And the same thing about Jet Luchenko. Oh, he cracked the roster. He made it very hard on Torts. Great. He did nothing in his 4 games.
Yeah, and he could be something, but I'm not going to get my hopes up for it. Every one of the guys you just mentioned, other than the few that we kind of pointed out, they all remind me of the Blair Bettses, the Nikolai Zerdevs, where you look back and you're like, who was wearing that number back then?
Yeah.
And then you have to Google it and you're like, oh, right. Yeah, I remember that guy.
How could you forget
And it's
Nikolai
just like
Jarda?
that's been the first round picks the Flyers have made in the last decade, for the most part.
Like they there's always like that meme is just like someone's like no like a girl says like it's not that big of a deal, and then it's like a guy imagining like a random player that they grew up watching. The same it can be applied, but for Flyers fans, it's more torture. Like it's just a player, and then you're just like, oh yeah, I remember Yori Laterra. Absolutely, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
great signing on that team. Or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I remember when they drafted Nolan Patrick. That was great. He amounted to nothing in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
And some of that wasn't necessarily his fault. I'm not going to throw him under the bus, but the bad drafting is just unbelievable. It's embarrassingly bad.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for us, I can't exactly say that the last 2 years of drafting is a disaster because A, it's not fair to say that. They have to at least get some time to go. And B, those are the first 2 drafts of the Danny Briere era. So it's not exactly a science of drafting, but the amount of misses that they had going back to Paul Holmgren days and then Chuck Fletcher, Ron Hextall, so many misses that just make your head spin.
Yeah.
It's not great. Any more developments? Checking right now. Kuzmenko waived his no trade to go to Philadelphia, and someone immediately said that's the Michkov effect. There might be some truth to that. People are acting like that they played together every day and every year in the KHL. They had one season together like 3 years ago, so it's not like that they had a bond that was unbreakable.
Yeah, it's nice, I guess, but I mean, again,
sure.
like maybe the idea is he's like, okay, well, I was great with Peterson. Maybe I have to be with another playmaker. I don't. Yeah, I'm trying to be optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, like at the end of the day, firstly, Michkov was more friendly with Ivan Demidov, who the Montreal Canadiens drafted.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that. We may not have the full details of the trade by the end of this episode. What we can tell you is that Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost are likely going to Calgary tonight. Kuzmenko at least appears to be headed to Philadelphia, and the idea is that Jakob Pelletier is also headed back to Philadelphia. Now, is it really a 2-for-2 trade? We don't know yet, but it's that's what's happening with this Flyers team. Are you excited? Can you really? I'm gonna cough. That's how bad this hockey's been. Can you really say you're excited right now about anything? Like, this is what we've done all year. We say that this team sucks. They go on a 3-game win streak. We say we've never been more back in our lives, and then we're back to this state of mind. During the All-Star break, when we do an episode, Cameron, I want to at least lay out what the expectation needs to be the rest of the season and what we should be hoping for, because we've gone with the generic, watch the young players. Maybe they'll develop. And I think we need to at least be a bit more specific of what we're talking about with that.
Yeah.
So, with that all being said, I want to turn things over very quickly to talk about something a little bit more positive, only mainly because I don't have all the trade details for you guys.
Just really quick, you remember people complaining about Braden Shen?
Yeah. The Flyers didn't draft him; they traded for him, and honestly, they should have kept him. They should not have gotten rid of him.
I don't know. I'm just thinking back to those moments when it's like, well, they were at least a playoff team back then. Sorry. It's late.
It is late.
Depressing.
Let's reminisce. Hey, remember the time that Simone Gagne scored that goal in Game 7 against the Boston Bruins? Those were fun days. Those were such fun days.
Remember Wayne Simmons' deflection hat trick goal against the Rangers, Game 6, 2014?
Yeah, I really thought they were going to go and win Game 7 after that Game 6. I'm like, they've got it. They're going to beat them.
And that was the day I bought my prom tickets for senior prom. We bought prom tickets. We went to Buffalo Wild Wings right afterward. Freaked out. We were like, that's it. We're going to the Cup. We didn't. But it felt like we were. It felt like we were that day.
I will tell you this. I remember the lowest I had ever felt as a Flyers fan before I became an adult, and every day was a low day for me, was probably getting Henrik Lundqvisted so hard in that Game 7. Because
It's almost a shame that he didn't win that year because like he happened to run into Jonathan Quick during his reign of terror as well.
They say Dan Marino is the greatest quarterback to never win a Super Bowl. Is he the greatest goalie to never win a title? It'd be Carey Price is up there as well, but
yeah, I'd have to look at the list, but he's one of the first guys off the top of your head. The numbers that guy put up were ridiculous, and that series with the Kings was an absolute masterclass of goaltending. Masterclass.
It was. Jonathan Quick was just a little bit better for the Kings. But, last week we ended our show by talking about what we thought was going to happen in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah. We did.
You and I both predicted that the Eagles would win. I was obviously a bit more tense about it. I think that you felt a little bit more confident in the Eagles winning than necessarily I did, but that's just because I'm a scared little bitch. And
I was just also angry with Washington. As if we haven't seen Dan Quinn do this shit so many times.
But, I have to say, the defensive coordinator, Joe Witt, goes out there and says, we're going to treat him like a running back. We're going to hit Hurts. You gave up 7 rushing touchdowns and 55 points to the Philadelphia Eagles. If I were Dan Quinn, which thankfully I'm not, if I were Dan Quinn, I would have told him on Monday, clean out your frickin' locker. You know what? You only get to go to your office. We will mail you the rest of your stuff. That is a fireable offense, in my opinion. That's bad. And all of the you said it. You texted it. It's just like Marshawn Lattimore. He was making you feel some sort of way. The jawing, getting into the face of A.J. Brown, and then proceedingly to get torched on a 4th and 5 play.
Yeah,
it was just. That team, I think, really thought they were going to walk into the link and walk out as NFC champions. I don't think they took the Eagles very seriously, and I think that starts with Dan Quinn.
And right, and yeah, I was just going to say that. Yep. Where does that usually start? And how can you not take the Eagles seriously walking into Philadelphia? And I think a good sign for that was, again, Jayden Daniels is young and he's going to be a talent in the league, right? The kid's great. The kid's going to be a good quarterback. But when he's dancing in the end zone, down 19 points in the third quarter, dude, we're in the NFC Championship game, man. We're not dancing. We have 3 scores to go here to be back in a fighting chance of this game, and we're already down on the road in Philadelphia. Like, well, what are we doing? And I had to look it up too because I wanted to make sure I got the name right. But yeah, the defensive coordinator thing reminded me of Chuck Dickerson, which I'm sure you might remember, but from 1992, Buffalo Bills defensive coordinator.
Oh, Chuck Dick, yeah. Oh,
calling out the Hogs from the Washington.
Oh my God!
And then Washington destroyed them, and Dickerson was fired the next day.
I remember watching the Four Falls of Buffalo documentary and them talking about the Dickerson thing because I didn't know about that initially. And I heard that and genuinely, I audibly said out loud, I was like, why would he do that? Why would you ever give your regular season stuff? It's like, okay, that's kind of stupid, but you move on because you got to have another week. The Super Bowl, you're going to try and really anger a team you're going to play in the Super Bowl? Bad move.
It's coming from somebody who hasn't been there before, and it's exactly why you get embarrassed. Exactly why it was 37-24, and the score does not deflect the game that day.
No, it was not as close as a 13-point game. That game was pretty much every one except for the one against the Giants was a blowout. The game was never really close, and so that's what happened to Washington. I think when they made it 14-12 off the Terry McLaurin touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, all right, they might have something here. But then there was the disaster. There was the fumble after the Eagles had already scored a touchdown. So it was 20-12. You had a minute 54 to go. Maybe you still get something going, and maybe you at least make it a 5-point game.
Yeah.
You fumble, Eagles make it 27-12. They go in the locker room 27-15. Eagles get a touchdown, make it 34-15. Here was the moment I knew these guys are freaking idiots. Jayden Daniels runs it in on 3rd and 1 for a touchdown to make it 34-21, and he's dancing in the end zone. And I have been very complimentary of Jayden Daniels, but I looked at that dance and I was like, would you look at the scoreboard for a second?
That's what I just said, dude. You're in the NFC Championship game.
Why are you?
What are you doing?
What are you doing? And pretty much what happened afterwards was exactly what should have happened. The Eagles, after it was 34-23, ripped off 21 straight points in the fourth quarter, and the game was never close after that. we'll have a chance, I think, to talk about the Super Bowl, and Cameron knows me. He already knows that I'm doing like a deep dive on. I'm going to be doing a deep dive on the Chiefs and everything like that. Like I want to make sure I'm informed about this Chiefs team.
Yeah,
but that NFC Championship game, it's a disaster for Washington. The fans will see like, well, we weren't even supposed to be here. I'm like, but you're here. And let me tell you, it ain't easy to get back.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow has not gotten back to the AFC Championship game. Lamar Jackson has yet to reach a Super Bowl. Josh Allen has yet to reach a Super Bowl.
Ask Dan Marino. Ask Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah. Like,
one shot, man. Sometimes.
One chance. And how many conference finals did Henrik Lundqvist get to? Not many. He didn't have many chances. He normally was out by the second round. You look at Dan Marino. He got to the AFC Championship game. Cameron, was it 3 or 4 times he got there? I think
at least 3.
I think it was 3. Yeah, it was 84, obviously, 85, and then what was it, like 90? Was it 92, 93 or something like that?
I think so. They got blown out too.
Well, that was the Buffalo days.
Yes.
And so that's Dan Marino. That's one of the greatest throwers of the football ever. He had like a 20-year career or like a 17-year career.
Yeah.
He never approached the Super Bowl again. So when you say, oh, it doesn't matter, we'll be back here next year, you don't know that at all. You are assuming that the team will continue to progress. But let me give you a piece of, advice. Take it from someone who watched it happen. When the Eagles won that Super Bowl, I thought, oh my God, and we're getting our MVP caliber quarterback next year. 2018 is going to be like, we're going to be on fire again in 2018. Carson Wentz never even came close to approaching what his 2017 was. Cam Newton, his best year, we'll talk about the MVP year, obviously, in terms of throwing the football and yardage, he got to 4,000 yards in his rookie year. He never got to 4,000 yards again. And Cam Newton, of course, saying today that he would not trade his MVP for a Super Bowl trophy, which, I mean, I don't think Jaden Daniels is like that, but I had to mention that because that's crazy to say.
It's classic. It's just, you tend to text me, and I was just like, I wouldn't expect Cam Newton to say anything other than that.
Be normal. How about that, Cam? Just be normal.
And it's just like, that's why you didn't win one, man.
Yeah.
Everyone reason why Russell Westbrook won't.
Everyone saw you not dive on the ball. We know that you clearly cared about individual success.
Yeah.
But my advice to Washington, as an honest Eagles fan and a guy that would love to see the NFC East rivalries really ratchet up over the next few years, of course, with the Eagles winning all those games, we don't want you winning over us, would be you got to improve the run defense. And in my opinion, you're going to have to teach Jaden Daniels to be, more of a pocket passer than a runner, because being a runner is great. But I've watched 2 running quarterbacks in my lifetime get worn down by injuries from running the ball too much.
Yeah.
And it is a big adjustment when you finally ask them to be a primarily a passer.
Yeah, and like you can look at Lamar Jackson, where it's like, he hasn't been to the Super Bowl or won one obviously yet, but ever since he has improved his passing over the past 3 or 4 years, AFC Championship game pretty much every time. And before that, the narrative was he can't win a playoff game. And he has since. So, if you're going to want to reach that next level, that's what he's going to have to do. It just surprises me that it's Washington doing this as if they didn't have RG3 a decade ago. As if we have, again, as I brought up multiple times throughout this season, as if we have not seen this story before of super high talented athletic quarterback coming to Washington. And not just Washington, this is all over the NFL, but specifically to Washington because it's happened here with a young coaching staff with a college-based offense. We've seen this before, man. And we watched it in Arizona with Cliff Kingsbury, and it went off a cliff. It's not sustainable forever. You got to make adjustments to it, and you can't just expect that it's going to stay this way because you had a fun and exciting year. The Dolphins had a fun and exciting year 2 years ago. And now Tyreek Hill is just like, I actually don't like not winning. And it's like, I
actually have to tell you something. All right.
Yeah, go ahead. You got very animated there.
No, you're going to love this. So Saturday, I go out with my cousin. He was in town, and I met him at a brewery in Mechanicsburg. And I was meeting a couple of their friends. It was like this married couple. They have 2 adorable children. And the wife is a Cowboys fan, and the husband is a Dolphins fan. And I'm talking with him, and I'm like, man, I was one of my close friends is also a Dolphins fan. We're talking about it. We're talking about what the team has been like over the last number of years, and he mentions how he hates Tua. He's like, Tua is one of the biggest problems we have on this team. And I was like, whoa, hold on a sec. Like,
I'm willing to hear it out. Because
so
he might be pointing out something that I do agree with, but I'll wait.
He mentions three main things. He goes, the injury concerns are out of control at this point, and he's getting injured every year. And not saying that he's he's an evil person for the injuries essentially, but like, hey man, like we're paying you all this money. We need you on the field. We need you to stay healthy. He gets the one thing I thought of is like he got the concussion, and then there was that other week where he literally dove with his head to try and stop a ball that was being returned the other way.
Yeah.
So on one hand, I was like, I get that. The second thing he says he mentions is just like he's not a winner. Like he's just simply not a winner. I'm like, well, that's debatable. He did win the national championship in college.
Yeah.
But the third thing, he says he's a left-handed thrower.
Okay, yeah, then you lost me. I don't get dumb.
Steve Young, please, like,
yeah,
come
that's
on,
dumb. Michael Vick, right? That's dumb. Like the winner thing, like I do get because there is some things where it's like you do need somebody to win a game, right? Like, and as much as like Jared Goff had a great year, he's a good quarterback, but I would not call Jared Goff a winner. And then it does not mean he's not going to win you a Super Bowl. But when I'm saying that is just like if it comes down to it, he's not going to be the guy that's going to push you over the edge, And I not that I necessarily agree with that, but I do get that criticism because you really haven't seen it too much out of Tua. You've seen it here and there, but not at a consistent level where you really, really needed it.
I was going to ask you, what do you think is Tua's best win since he's been in the pros?
Oh, definitely the Baltimore Ravens game.
The comeback, right?
Yeah, 100%. 100%, which is a game where it's like, well, there's an example of him winning, but again, not consistent enough. So I get that. The injury thing's a valid criticism, and especially when it came down to the last game of the season against Buffalo, where against the Jets, where it's like, yeah, and apparently it's some hip injury, and maybe he wasn't able to play, but it didn't seem that way. He seemed questionable all week, questionable for the past 2 weeks, and then it's like, well, he's not playing. It gets to a point where it's like, I'm not asking you to push through an injury. I'm not asking you to necessarily hurt yourself, but at the same time, if this team is what you think it is, if this team is you're going for it, if you're good enough to play, I need you out on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it hurts, I need you out on the field. No offense, but we're watching clips of Kirk Cousins where he's getting blasted in the ribs and can't breathe. He's still out there. You watch the clip of Matt Stafford getting his shoulder dislocated. He still marches down the field, scores a touchdown. I'm not asking you to hurt yourself, but I do need you to be like, let's go.
Jalen Hurts getting hurt in the playoffs and sticking it out, playing through the pain
and crushing it.
To a win, yeah.
And crushing it. But yeah, the winner thing to me, however, for the most part, whenever I hear that, I'm always just like, well, everybody says that until you are a winner. They said the same thing about Jordan. Well, because he couldn't get past the Pistons in the early 90s. He's not a winner. He doesn't got the clutch gene until he did. And then same with LeBron. Well, he couldn't do it without a super team in Miami. Well, then he went to Cleveland, and then he did. So it's just like, well, then now he's a winner all of a sudden, So like that one, I don't care as much for.
This is a new development on the trade, by the way.
Hit it.
So it's almost a done deal. The Flyers are getting those two players, and they are sending out Farabee and Frost. They will be getting draft picks back, according to a couple different sources.
Do we know of what caliber? I'm guessing not.
Not yet, but okay. Here's what Tony Andrikaitis had to say. 2 draft picks are going to the Flyers.
Okay.
So it'll be Kuzmenko, Pelletier, and 2 draft picks going to the Flyers. Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost are going to the Flames. We do not have yet the details of what rounds they are. I'll say this right now. If any of those are if it's 3rd and higher on any of those picks, great job, Danny. I would be very happy about.
I'm pumped for 2 seconds. If one of them's a first, that'd be really freaking nice. But I don't think it will be. But
that would be crazy.
It'd be a great job. That'd be a great job, I think.
Another thing that this friend of my cousin's brought up, because I asked him about Mike McDaniel.
Really quick though, it might not be a great job because we say that, right? We say we're like, we got another 1st-round pick, and yeah, it is a new regime, but at the same time, we did just spend about 20 minutes of this podcast talking about all the 1st-round picks that they've missed.
Okay, here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll respond to that with.
So I just got to disclaim there.
No, you are right for pointing that out, but here's the thing. This is like when people back in the day when we thought Howie Roseman was a horrible drafter. the Eagles might get like a draft pick, and I would hear people like, "What's the point? We're just going to throw it away." But you still need to draft because there are occasions where even the dumbest GM out there can hit on a pick. So I would like to think that the more picks you have, the more likely it is that you're going to hit on something.
That's true. That's true.
So you are right, Cameron, that
that's true.
We have missed too many picks, but that should never deter a team from being like, yeah, we're going to be hungry to get more.
Yeah. But you're right. You're ultimately right. But go on. Your other point.
So I asked him about Mike McDaniel. He goes, I like him. I think Mike McDaniel's a very good coach. And in my mind, I'm just like,
I'm out.
I didn't get a chance to say it to him, but I was about to say like, yeah, my buddy was saying he'd be a great offensive coordinator somewhere.
I like McDaniel as the guy. But it's been 3 years and you haven't showed me. I need to see something. I need to see a change. I need to see something. And it's your decision to name who the leaders are. You name Tyreek Hill a leader, and it's just like, what are we doing? The guy who gave up on the team throughout this season, and that's just one example, right? That's not even like the overall thing. There's so much more to it. There's so just not, in hindsight, so many things to me could have been avoided, which aren't always McDaniel's fault, but a lot of coaching decisions could have been avoided. Yeah, I could go into it, but I already kind of have throughout the season. I will say one of my only major criticisms for Tua is one of his strengths, which is his anticipation and accuracy, which makes him not a good improviser.
Yeah.
Which means if the play gets messed up, he's getting messed up and then throws a wide open interception. So
the play design's kind of becoming like, I guess, a bit more predictable. The lack of I guess culture would be, you could say, is a problem in Miami when you have like one of your team captains just openly saying, yeah, I got to get out. Like that's not a good sign for culture. But yeah, so it was interesting. By the way, good people who I met. I actually really enjoyed being around them, and I hope that if my cousin's back in the area and he might ask me to join him and his friends again in the future. But yeah, it was interesting to hear like this kind of rhetoric. I did ask him, just knowing, like, because I've asked you before, like, of all the teams in the division, who do you hate the most? And for you, it's definitely like between the Patriots and the Jets. Maybe more so the Jets because you love to just hate on the Jets.
Yeah, and the Jets I have zero respect for.
Yeah. I asked him.
I don't have a lot for New England, but I have more than the Jets.
So he said, he goes, for him it would probably be New England. He goes, but I do hate the Bills. I was like, really? And he's just like, yeah. He goes, I don't like them. I've never liked them in any way. And it made me think about that because I have talked to so many fans across football from all different fan bases. You know what I never hear? I hate the Buffalo Bills. Never hear that.
I don't even hate the Buffalo Bills.
No, like their fan base is arguably the most fun fan base in the NFL. Not as passionate as some, but definitely the most fun. And everyone in America was like, please give it to these Buffalo fans. Let's see them beat the Chiefs and get to the Super Bowl. And then when they didn't, I think everyone was a Bills fan at the moment. They were just so frustrated that, like another Josh Allen can't pull it off moment. Like, what do we got to do to see it? So, yeah, I thought you'd enjoy what I learned about another Dolphins fan that night.
That's interesting. It's very interesting because I don't know, the Bills. It's hard to hate them because again, their fan base is not annoying. They're endearing. They have character, in my opinion. They're always raising money for other teams' charities all the time, including Tua's. Like for this past season when he got injured, they're just always doing nice, cool things. They're always doing nice, cool things for the most part. They're never really doing any problems. And 4 in a row. Super Bowls that they went to, lost all 4 of them. You saw the fan reception in that documentary. Of those who haven't seen it, Four Falls of Buffalo, highly recommend it.
You should watch it. Anyone who's
it'll make you like them so much more.
It really will, and it'll also like whenever they're like previewing like the next Super Bowl, you're like, I don't know, maybe they can do it. Like maybe, and even though deep down you already know what happens. Like,
you're still rooting. You're always rooting for him. Yeah, you're like Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly's such a good guy that you're just like, his story's not going to end with him not getting one, right? And it's
and
like, it does.
That's what it ends with.
That's exactly how it ends.
The part about seeing the current the footage of like Scott Norwood like being interviewed on his couch. I don't know if it's that specific game, but he looked uncomfortable when interviewed. Like he didn't look quite comfortable. Then maybe that's just him, but I think
I'm sure it's hard to talk about.
I mean, I thought that's what I was about to go to. Like, you lost the team, the city, the Super Bowl on a kick, and great on the Buffalo fans to embrace it. Meanwhile, Phillies, after the Phillies lost the '93 World Series, there were death threats to Mitch Williams. Buffalo's propping up their kicker for missing a 46-yarder, and people are asking him, like, "Hey, what was that like?" And without paraphrasing this, he's probably just thinking to himself, "Yeah, it's the worst thing in my life. Like, what would you like me to talk more about it? What more can I say?"
Yeah, and that reminds me of another one. We were talking about Dan Marino earlier, but he was interviewed, I think, in either his football life. It might have been that one or another one, but he was somebody. I think the interviewer asked him pretty much like, "You have all these records and all these things, like, but not having the Super Bowl. Like, is it okay with you having all these records and no Super Bowl ring as a like substitute?" And he just looks at them and just goes, "Really? Like, do you really like? What do you think the answer to that question is?" Like, it's like, no, man, I want to win. That's kind of the whole point of why I joined this thing. I will say, I think in this trade, the bigger loss, might eat my words here, is Farabee at the moment, just because I feel like Frost with the ending contract and that kind of stuff, he wasn't going to see his last moments here anyway. And honestly, even Farabee, as much as I loved him, I want him to work out.
There has to be here. It's got to be contract retention that the Flyers are taking off the hands of the Flames to do this.
Could be, but they don't have a lot of cap space either, the Flyers, at the moment, I don't think. I think they have like $5.5 million, something like that.
If they're getting a first-round pick, I have to imagine the Flyers there was like a sweetener.
Yeah, you're right. I hear you.
But we won't be able to stay online forever and cover this trade. But to recap, Flyers, very disappointing performance tonight against the New Jersey Devils. We find out that Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost are being traded for, Hunter Brustowitz, a prospect in the Flames, a first-round selection. My gosh, I'm always forgetting. I have to get these names right. Jakob Pelletier, and then the other one, obviously, is Kuzmenko. What is it? Andrei Kuzmenko. Kuzmenko.
I have it here. I did not remember that. It's right. I look right at it.
The next 12 hours are going to be exciting, and I'm sure Broad Street Hockey is going to be providing you with all of the articles you need to read on these guys. So please make sure you're tuning into Broad Street Hockey.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure it was Thomas Williams, I think, right? Was Tom?
This was Tom. Yep, Thomas Williams. Who is?
Yeah, he already had a full article written as soon as Frost wasn't on the bench.
Thomas Williams, one of the more knowledgeable guys I've seen talk about hockey. If you don't follow him on social media to get his takes on hockey or read his articles, you're missing out on a lot. That goes to say with every writer that we have here at Broad Street Hockey. But Thomas Williams, Tom, I enjoy your writing. I really enjoy what you put there.
And he has this also like this sarcastic kind of quip sometimes
too.
And he's just a very dry personality. Great dude, great articles. And again, he was on it with it. So it is. So with background on any of these guys, that's the place to go. Sorry, go ahead.
So with that being said, this is the Fly Guys podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Another Fly Guys After Dark episode. Be happy, be healthy. The Fly Guys podcast is presented by BetOnline. His name is Cameron Klein. My name is Justin Goodart, and we are signing off for the night. Let's go Flyers.